Story 1. Growing up, we had a set of Disney character spoons. Donald Duck was the most coveted of them all. Years later, after I joined the military and returned home on leave, I opened the silverware drawer to grab Donald for ice cream and found him gone. He wasn't in the sink, and my parents didn't have a dishwasher. I asked my mom about it, and she chuckled, saying Donald went missing right around the time my little sister left for college. I was grumpy. Later, I asked my sister about it, but all I got were denials. I could hear the smirk in her voice. Fast forward to my 50th birthday party. My sister handed me my gift in a small rectangular box. I opened it in front of everyone to find Donald with a little blue bow around him. My sister spent the rest of the night laughing while I kept saying I couldn't believe she would do that. So, he's mine now until I pass him on, probably to one of her kids. Story 2. I ate the last slice of pizza with my name on it, and then had the audacity to say, "You were taking too long." I still bring it up at every family dinner. Story 3. My younger brother started a rumor in school when he was in grade 8 and I was in grade 9. He claimed that he caught me using a vacuum cleaner inappropriately. For the next 4 years, I would walk down the hallway to the sounds of mockery behind me. The saddest thing is that, even though I knew it was something sexual, I didn't understand what it meant until the middle of grade 10. Story 4. My younger brother shoplifted from Walmart. He didn't have his ID on him, and the police asked him his name several times. He provided several fake names, then eventually gave them my name. To verify his identity, they asked for a birthday, which he knew. Then he gave them my mother's address, where I used to live as a kid. Somehow, he was successfully verified as me and taken to jail using my identity. Took time for me to clear this up. There are many news articles online with my name, even ones that report it was fake. Whenever I undergo a background check, I fail because it is on my record, and I have to call and sort everything out. Story 5. For me, it was when my brother grabbed me and pulled me off the chair, causing me to slam into the hardwood floor and drawers. I burst into tears because it hurt so much, and my mom came in, only for my brother to tell her that I fell. It was years ago now, but I remember my brother either not getting into trouble or my mom believing him for a moment. Story 6. I was 12 and left in charge of my little siblings. We were playing a silly game that involved running around the house and chasing each other. I remember we were wearing socks so we could slide around. My little sister slid into a table that had a vase on it. The vase fell and broke. She was crying hysterically, asking if mom was going to hate her. I felt responsible for being in charge and didn't want her to be so upset. I told her it was okay and I would explain it to mom, telling her it was my fault. Enter my little brother, who took the opportunity to rush downstairs when mom got home from work to shout, "Mom, a silly accident broke your vase." I'll never forget his little grin while she scolded me. I still love him for some reason, but sometimes I want to throw him in a lake. Story 7. I grew up in a very poor family and moved frequently. I only received hand-me-downs. When it came to video games, I would only get to play something years after its release if I was lucky, and even then, I was expected to share it with any one of my siblings, as I was the oldest of 10. So when I was given my copy of Pokemon Red, while having to share the Game Boy, I was ecstatic. This was my own copy of a game that had just come out and was currently popular. I went all in, despite it being before the internet. I made incredible trades, put hundreds of hours into the game, and even saved money to pay for gas so a friend's mom could take us to the store to get Mew. I had completed my Pokédex 100% without cheating. At that time, it was the biggest accomplishment of my 10-year-old life. Less than 2 days later, my younger brother got upset that I wouldn't trade him my Mew. We only had one Game Boy, so it was impossible, but he didn't understand. He decided to start a new game, overwriting my save file. I love my brother, but to this day, I still feel this deep anger toward him for doing this. It is silly and ultimately means nothing in the long run. But that was truly the first time I felt pride, and in less than a week, it all turned to tears. Story 8. My little brother ate my Cheeny Minis from Burger King at 7:52 a.m. on July 7, 2001. He still owes me for that. Story 9. I made my siblings' wedding cake and found them a place to stay since they live abroad but wanted to marry in the UK. I also acted as their photographer. During the speeches, there was not a single word of thanks, but they gushed over the bridesmaid for just showing up. Apparently, the parents were unsure about this union, so the bride and groom didn't want to upset them. I am still feeling salty about it 40 years later. Story 10. I had an unexpected conversation with my brother. He apologized for a whole list of hurtful things he did to me when we were kids. I was confused because I didn't remember any of it. I mostly remember him avoiding or ignoring me, and I him. Story 11. When I was 13 and my brother was 10, he screamed offensive slurs at my friends and lied to our parents about it to get me in trouble. I was hanging out with my friends when my brother ran over to us. He called my friends offensive names and threatened to beat them up before running back into the house. I was so mortified. 2 girls in that group stopped being my friends because they thought my brother was behaving violently. When I went back inside, my brother was crying, and my parents were furious. According to him, he had come outside to say hello to my friends, but they had called him a slur and threatened to beat him up. My parents refused to believe me when I told them the truth. They grounded me for the entire summer, took away my possessions, piled on chores, and stopped speaking to me. Instead of asking how my day was when I got home from school, my mother would just hand me the vacuum cleaner and tell me to get to work. This lasted for about a week. My mother overheard my brother bragging to a friend about what he had done. When she questioned him, he admitted that he had called my friends offensive names and lied to her about it. He was grounded for 1 week. When I pointed out that this was extremely unfair, my mother had a list of excuses. He's a little boy, he was joking, he doesn't know what that word means, he has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, etc. She then said that because of his condition, a lengthy punishment was too cruel because he needed to have his friends around to entertain him. Essentially, if she grounded him, he would complain and make her miserable, so she did the bare minimum. I'm still mad at both of them. My brother was a bully growing up, and his behavior never improved. My mother continued to make excuses for him. To this day, no one has apologized for the incident I just described, and my mother acts like it's just some silly prank my brother pulled. Story 12. Cut a hole in the Terminator 2 hat I got from Universal Studios about a week after we came home. This was the early 1990s, and we were living in the UK, so that hat, which I loved at 11 years old, was pretty much irreplaceable. Story 13. I was given medication while knowing I had bipolar disorder, until I lost my mind. Then they were taken away when I became addicted, and I was manipulated into thinking I was a bad person. Story 14. My brother, who is older than I am, sold my Pokemon cards when I was a teenager. I mean, my entire collection. I told my parents, but they didn't care because my brother was their favorite. Story 15. I bought a box of chocolates that he received for Christmas at a bargain price, but it turned out to be empty, and he refused to issue a refund. Story 16. It's been 30 years and my mom still blames me for losing her favorite pot, even though it must have been my older sister, who won't admit it. My dad and brother have never set foot in the kitchen, and I know it wasn't me. The only other explanation that makes sense is that my sister and her friends were probably messing around after school, maybe trying to cook or do some kind of crafting by melting something, ruined the pot, and threw it out to hide the evidence. But she refuses to admit it. Story 17. Died from alcoholism at 39 years old. He was a gorgeous man and a good enough guitar player to audition for Ozzy Osbourne after Randy. They were 13 months apart in age, shared the same difficult mother, and had an absent father. Why am I still here and he is not? Story 18. I am generally upset about how my sister has treated me. What frustrates me the most is that she has never sincerely apologized to me or expressed genuine remorse. It's the gaslighting, with her downplaying or denying any wrongdoing on her part. Even when I confront her with undeniable proof, such as text messages, video clips, or blog posts, I am the bad guy for invading her privacy. Whenever I tell her that her words or actions have hurt me, I am accused of trying to pick a fight with her or of making her look bad. The fact that I made her feel bad is considered worse than what she said or did. Sister, I suspect you know my online username, as you are one of the few people who would recognize it. If you are reading this and feeling angry and hurt, claiming that I am making you look bad in front of strangers instead of talking to you, I want to address a few things. First, you do not make it easy for me or anyone to be honest with you because you are very defensive, cannot take criticism, take no accountability for your actions, and constantly play the victim. Second, this is not new to you. I have said these things to you directly in the past, so do not act surprised. Third, deep down, you know I am not saying anything that isn't true. Also, I am not humiliating you by posting this, as no one here knows who either of us are. We are not famous or public figures, so no one cares about us. You need to let go of that notion. Story 19. Frog splashed me off the backrest of the couch when I was lying on the floor. He then got up and started mocking me. The wind was knocked out of me so badly that I thought I was dying. Story 20. My brother is excused for his faults because of his autism all the time, and he was pampered while growing up. It makes me frustrated because I am on the spectrum too, yet I often got in trouble for everything and had to fight for almost everything one way or another. Story 21. My sister, who is 4 years younger than I am, used to take my clothes, usually dresses and bathing suits, and sew them smaller so she could wear them. I would go to put on whatever I planned to wear and find that it was 2 sizes smaller. The worst was when I bought a tankini in 1996 to take to cadet camp with me. I didn't try it on before packing it up. When I got to camp and went to swim, guess who had to wear shorts and a t-shirt at the beach for 2 weeks? Story 22. I let her stay with me in my first apartment because she and my mom would fight a lot. I started noticing that my video games, medieval literature, and several items were going missing. Her behavior was off, very lethargic, and her skin was deteriorating. I had a gut feeling and checked my laptop history, which she had borrowed. All of my items were listed on Craigslist for a low price, just enough for some heroin. The most recent post was an image of my Chihuahua mix for $100. That dog responds to her as Auntie. That dog has been with me through an abusive relationship and multiple miscarriages. I threw her belongings into a garbage bag, and when she returned from partying, I was on the phone with the police while telling her to take her things and leave. She's clean now, but I will never trust her again. Story 23. My bigger sister knew I couldn't stand sour cream. She sat on top of me and force-fed me sour cream for long minutes. I ended up crying, and my mom called me picky. I was seriously in my 30s before I could handle trying sour cream even as an ingredient. I have to mask it with lots of garlic. Story 24. My sister is going through a challenging time mentally. I'm trying to support her as much as I can, but when I was experiencing my own struggles, she was not supportive. Years ago, she blamed me for her inability to seek help because she felt I was receiving all the attention. I sometimes feel a bit annoyed by this. Story 25. As a 14-year-old, I was obsessed with Cheap Trick to the exclusion of all else. My dream was to see them live. They had a New Year's Eve show scheduled in my home city, Los Angeles. My brother was going to buy tickets for his close friend group and me, as he could drive. I was so excited I couldn't sleep. He returned with a little stuffed camel to make up for the fact that he hadn't bothered to get me a ticket. I have never seen Cheap Trick in concert. I'm now 60. Story 26. Donuts were a rare treat for us, generally bought by visiting guests, so we might get a donut once every 3 years. However, one night we had donuts for dessert. Each of us received one, and there were none left afterward. My brother farted on my donut, and I cried very hard. My mother expected me to eat it anyway. I have no idea if anyone else did, but I certainly did not. Story 27. We had a Nintendo Entertainment System in the late 1980s. I was playing Metroid. The game didn't have a traditional save feature. After each session, it provided a code to enter the next time you played to resume where you left off. I was so close to the end. One day I went to play, and the code didn't work. I kept trying repeatedly, but it just wouldn't work. My brother and his friend came into the room, saw me struggling, and laughed. He admitted that he used the code and finished the game. All the time I invested in the game felt wasted. Story 28. My brothers destroyed around half of my Warhammer collection during my early teenage years. I had to save my pocket money for some time before I could buy anything. My parents allowed them to play with the models because they thought, they just sit on your shelf. This led to the destruction of far too many Eldar models. It virtually killed my interest in getting new models. What was the point when my property wasn't safe at home? Now, I only watch lore channels on YouTube, and it has been almost 20 years since then. Story 29. I grew up as the only girl among 3 brothers who were popular and talented in ice hockey. My parents paid thousands for them to play travel and high school club hockey, which is expensive. They traveled to a different city every weekend, always missing school and going to exciting places, staying in beautiful hotels with their friends. It looked like so much fun. I was never into sports. I was more focused on creative pursuits. However, my dad made me get a job since I didn't play a sport. I didn't mind working, but it felt twisted that my parents were easily paying over $10,000 per brother each year, while they did nothing in return, never had to work, and were treated like royalty. Meanwhile, I am the only one without contact today and considered self-made. They never became famous as my parents had hoped, although my older brother was a free agent in the National Hockey League and came close. Now, they have jobs through family connections. My job, passions, and life are all created by me. In the end, I win. Story 30. I put my arm through the wringer of a washing machine and stood there laughing while my arm got crushed. I was 7. I played darts in the garden. After my turn, I went to remove the darts from the board when my sister threw her darts into the back of my head. Fun times. Story 31. My sister demanded my room when I left for college, even though I would be home for breaks in summer. My parents told her that if I didn't return home for a year, she could have it. When I returned home within the year, she threw a fit and haggled with my parents to get it anyway. She said if I didn't move my belongings and furniture from the room, she would do it and take it when I went back to school. There went my safe space to retreat to when I was at home. I can't believe it took me so long to start blaming my parents for her behavior growing up. Story 32. My older brother and I attempted a pepper challenge in the backyard, where we both ate a raw habanero. He ran to the back to use the garden hose to rinse his mouth. In desperation, I grabbed the hose from him, and he turned it off. Story 33. My sister would get carsick. I was playing with a new Wally Willy I just got at the gas station instead of a snack. She sat in the middle. My brother and I got soaked in her vomit. I still bring up Wally Willy, and she remembers it too, almost 30 years later. Story 34. I went into my dresser while I was away at college and donated all the sweaters I had left at home. I had left them because another sister had lent them to me, and I didn't need them anymore. She forgave them. I did not. Story 35. I spent years disliking one of my brother's friends because my brother told me that the friend was the one who hit my car. Turns out my brother was actually the one who hit my car. Additionally, as teenagers, my brother used my social security number for a buy now, pay later arrangement. He claimed he just made a mistake because our social security numbers are only 1 digit apart. While that may be true, he wasn't old enough for credit, so his actions were intentional. Story 36. We used to have picture proof, but my sister says she got the blue platypus stuffed animal, and I got the pink one for Christmas, although I distinctly remember getting the blue platypus. I've tried to take it back, but she somehow manages to keep it. She now lives in another country, so next time I'm at my parents' house, I will be reclaiming my blue platypus stuffed animal. Story 37. I am an identical twin, which is important later in the story. I was doing lifeguard training for a summer camp, and my twin was with me. I successfully completed all the training, and we reached the final exercise, which involved retrieving a 20-pound brick from the bottom of the diving pool. I knew I could do it because I had done it before, but I had an ear infection and a history of multiple ear surgeries and eustachian tube dysfunction. I wasn't looking forward to it and didn't raise my hand to volunteer. My sister was one of the first to go, and when the second-to-last person finished, the instructor closed the book and announced that we all passed. I was so relieved. He must have confused us and thought we both went. No one said anything, knowing my ears hurt so badly, except my sister, who raised her hand and said, "Excuse me, but my sister didn't go." I had to go. I thought my head might explode and my eardrum would rupture. I didn't speak to her for a week, and she still feels bad to this day. She cannot explain why she said anything, and that was generally not like her. Story 38. My brother used to tell people in high school that we weren't related, so I one-upped him by telling an elaborate lie. I claimed that the reason he was so quiet and awkward, though he wasn't really awkward, was because his real mother was in prison for stabbing his real father to death. I said my brother witnessed the murder, was in therapy twice a week, and had night terrors. Story 39. My brother would steal my underwear and wear them when I was 17 and he was 2 years younger. I would always call him out for being gross. He has always been a strange person and still is 25 years later. Story 40. On my 16th or 17th birthday, my mom asked my brother what cake she should get for me. He suggested cheesecake, which I have never liked. He made it up to me on my 18th birthday when he asked my mom where we were going for dinner, as she had forgotten and was busy with my little sister. My brother then took me out to dinner. Story 41. My older sister, Jay, was upset with me because I wouldn't allow her daughter to move in with me. My niece is over 30, works full-time, and is not homeless. She simply broke up with her girlfriend. At that time, my husband and I were preparing to move out of state for his job. Additionally, I rarely hear from my niece unless she wants something, usually money. My niece called my sister and claimed that I yelled at her and refused to let her move in. That's not what I said. I explained that I was moving soon and it wasn't a good idea. My sister said nothing to me and subsequently ghosted me. For context, Jay had a large home at the time and has been married 4 times. Fast forward to when my daughter was getting married. She sent out save-the-date cards to all her aunts and uncles and received many excited responses. My brother and his wife sent a nice check but said they couldn't attend because they had booked a vacation the same weekend. My other sister called to say she wouldn't miss the wedding. Then Jay responded, and my daughter called me in tears. Not only did Jay say she was not going, but she also went on to tell my daughter what a terrible person I was, claiming I had never been there for the family and that she wanted nothing to do with me. The thing I will never forget or forgive her for is that she told my daughter not to even think of inviting her to the next wedding because we all know this one won't last. She instructed my daughter to tell me, using many colorful metaphors, that I could fuck off and that I was dead to her. She claimed I made my own niece homeless and didn't care, showing her heartlessness. How dare you contact me? My reason for not forgiving or forgetting is simple. If you have a problem with me, come to me directly. Leave my children alone. For those wondering, my niece's older sister, Kay, said my niece moved in with her. She was never homeless. Story 42. She took my brand new mountain bike to the store and left it behind by the dumpster. Someone stole it. I was very upset with her for a while. However, I'm not still angry today. She passed away 5 years ago. Don't hold on to things, everyone. Story 43. My sister begged to play my Pokemon Yellow version repeatedly. I didn't want her to touch it because there was only one save file, and I had a complete Pokédex with every Pokemon at max level. My parents made me share, and the first thing she did was save and erase all my hard work. Story 44. After my mother died, she would drive the long distance from her house to my parents' home and load it up with things she wanted. My dad never asked if I wanted any of it. Story 45. My sister wouldn't let me help her sort through her storage, which she paid several times more than it was worth, to find pictures my deceased father had given her. I told her I was no longer going to help pay for her storage or bills, so she finally let it go as I suggested. However, she had the audacity to say that the pictures were gone too. Story 46. Christmas 2020. My sister and her husband drove out to spend the day at our mother's house, where I was living with my daughter and son. They arrived at 10 a.m. and brought their dog, which was the best thing they brought, in my opinion. Fast forward to around 6 p.m. My mother, sister, and I were sitting at the kitchen table when my mom suddenly realized something. "Have you two said Merry Christmas to each other?" We both confirmed we had not, avoiding eye contact and trying not to sound bitter. Mom turned to my sister and said, Say Merry Christmas to your sister. My sister replied, Merry Christmas, dog's name. Then she started laughing maniacally as if it was the greatest thing in the world. Mom turned to me, expecting me to be the bigger person. I said Merry Christmas and nothing else for the rest of the evening. If I never speak to my sister again, it will be too soon. That wasn't the only reason we had issues, but it was definitely the last straw for me. I have not known a peace like the past nearly 4.5 years. Story 47. Waking up in the summer to find my two worst childhood bullies sitting on my couch, petting my dog. My brother randomly decided to befriend these kids, who are 4 years younger than him. Story 48. My brother and I never got along since birth. He has only ever reached out to talk to me once in my entire life, and it was when I was about 23. He said he was preparing to ask a woman to marry him and wanted to be traditional, so he wanted to bring her home to introduce her to our family. I was on the other side of the world at that point and was pretty broke. I was very surprised when he offered to pay for my flight. I asked if he was sure and reminded him that it would be around $2,000, and I couldn't afford it. He said it was fine. Having me there was what mattered. I can't describe how this made me feel. My older brother had never so much as given me a compliment. He never said, "Good job," never asked if I was okay. Conversely, he would always put me down, call me stupid, ugly, and weird. I resented him for most of my life, which made it easy for us to never talk. This conversation happened in January, with plans to fly out in December. After that brief phone call, I was pretty excited. I made a post on my social media about how I was going to be back in Canada for the holidays and how I'd try to find a layover in the city so I could meet up with friends. I guess my brother saw this post and was not happy. He didn't say anything, but he wasn't happy. About October, I hadn't heard from him, so I sent him a message letting him know what dates I was able to get off work and asking if it was possible to get a layover if the price didn't change, as I had friends all over the country I'd like to see. He was absolutely furious and dismissive. He instantly said he wasn't paying for anything anymore because he wasn't about to pay for me to go out and have a good time. He said he would buy the ticket on one condition: that I did not consume any alcohol, didn't smoke any weed, didn't go out at night, or meet up with any of my friends and went to bed at a reasonable hour. I laughed and said, "I'm a grown adult. I'm married. How are you going to give me a curfew?" He said, "That's the way it is." At that point, I'd already promised my mother I was coming home as I hadn't seen her in maybe 4 years. She was busy making plans and putting down payments on things for us to do as a family. So even though I definitely couldn't afford the trip, I took out a credit card and a loan from my husband and bought my own ticket. All in all, the trip probably cost me $3,500. And as someone living paycheck to paycheck, that's no joke. My brother is wealthy. He spends $3,500 like it's nothing, and he has no debts. I never asked for spending money, and he offered to buy me the ticket because he wanted me to be home for Christmas. The biggest thing that upset me more than anything was that I had told myself I wouldn't be dramatic about it. I bought presents for everyone in my family, including him and his fiancée. They didn't buy anyone anything. They looked miserable the entire time they were visiting. Furthermore, we were supposed to spend 10 days together. My brother literally spent one night at home with the family, came back for Christmas Day, and the rest of the time they were in town, they stayed at a hotel an hour away to go sightseeing. So his claim that a Christmas visit is for time with family was nonsense. But that's the kind of person my brother is. He isn't interested in doing good deeds, he just likes the power. I was upset about having to pay that money unexpectedly, but I can't imagine if he actually did pay for the ticket. He would have tried to make me feel bad about it for the rest of my life. Story 49. My oldest sister told our mom that the reason I gained weight at 13 was that I had a boyfriend who told me I looked good, and she believed it and then threatened me. Story 50. I urinated on my mattress multiple times. The last incident was out of pure spite. No, he's not a toddler. The first time he did this, he was in his late teens, and the second time was in his early 20s. Story 51. My sister left my mother's basement, which was essentially an apartment, absolutely filthy. She then got into an argument with my mom after my mom went into the basement to look for something my sister had borrowed. My sister left our home to be with her girlfriend at the time, who my mom said had to leave because she wasn't cleaning either. However, my mom told my sister she could stay since she had my niece, whom my mom and I were essentially raising for my sister 75% of the time. When she left, she cut off almost all contact with the family, which meant my baby niece grew up not knowing us, when we were all she knew until then. She wasn't even 2 years old when this happened. My mom had to take out several trash bags, and I wasn't home to help her. Additionally, she left all the bills she was supposed to pay overdue, as she had stopped paying for months or only paid enough to keep services from being cut off. My sister came around a couple of years ago, almost 20 years later. Even though my mom and the rest of my family have decided to be cool with her, this will not change anything for me. She can play nice with them if they want, but I won't be involved. If she hurts anyone again, I'll be the first to say, "I told you so." I say a dry hello when I see her, and that's as far as it goes. My family knows to keep her away from me and not to try any reunion nonsense, as I'll hold a grudge against her forever. I don't subscribe to the "but it's family" mentality. Story 52. I was occupied with a game we were playing when I asked him to respond to a text message I received from my then-girlfriend. He went through my phone, sent all the inappropriate pictures she had ever sent me to his phone, and then deleted the text thread. It was just sheer happenstance that I caught him. I was standing behind him while he was in his text conversation menu and instinctively grabbed his phone to see what it was. This happened about 15 years ago. We are cool now, but I don't think I have ever fully forgiven him for that breach of trust. Story 53. We were 14 and 12 when we got home from school. She ran to the door, entered, and locked it behind her. We shared a key, so I couldn't open the door. She turned around, laughed, and made no effort to let me in. I ran to my room, opened the window, and crawled in. She didn't see me, so I decided to sneak to the outside freezer in the carport to get herself an ice cream. When she did, I shut the door behind her and locked her out, laughing at her. I kept her out for a minute before letting her back inside. She was so angry that she slammed the door and shoved her hand through the glass window, slicing it open. I put a towel on it and immediately called my mom, who worked about 10 minutes away. She had to leave work to take my sister to the emergency room to get stitched up. While there, my sister made up lies about how I was the one to run to the house, lock her out, and refuse to let her in. I ended up getting in trouble. I had to apologize to my sister, do yard work to pay for the window that needed to be fixed. I had no snacks for a month, and I got yelled at about needing to be a better brother. We were poor, so my mom missing work and paying for medical bills was hard on the family, but none of that felt like my fault. Meanwhile, my sister got to relax and eat popsicles all summer while I did backbreaking yard work. It's no wonder I don't care much for my family even 30 years later. Story 54. She was older and bigger than I was. She would always sit on me and pretend to punch me in the face, moving her fist at the last second. One day, she actually hit me by accident, and it hurt. It didn't break my nose, but I got a bloody nose and a black eye. She really hit me. She got in a lot of trouble for that. Story 55. He legitimately tried to drown me because he was angry at our mother. I resemble her, but he didn't want to hurt her, so I was the next best thing. Story 56. I told my brother that a boy was mean to me and called me a slut when I was about 14 or 15. He said I probably deserved it. Story 57. My sister framed me for smoking and was in cahoots with the babysitter, who also happened to be my much older cousin. I think I was around 8 or 9 years old. They both smoked a pack of my dad's cigarettes and scattered the butts around the room where I was sleeping. My cousin confronted me about it, claiming she saw me do it. The evidence seemed so overwhelming that I admitted it to my father, leading to the worst beating of my life. My sister is now struggling with addiction and lives in a trailer in the countryside. I don't really talk to her much anymore, and I still don't smoke to this day. Story 58. He gave my EV a Waterstone without asking. I had planned not to get Vaporeon because I liked Jolteon and Flareon more. Story 59. My half-sister, who is not my father's daughter, revealed to me who my dad was married to before and what that meant for our family. I was about 5 years old when she told me with so much venom and disgust. as if I were stupid for not knowing. I believe she lacks any feeling or empathy, and she wonders why everyone thinks she is cold. Story 60. I have a master list, but the biggest issue I have with my sister is that I helped her raise my nephew, and then she harmed him mentally and emotionally. It's a long story, but when she was 19 and I was 17, she got pregnant. He never had a father, and as I got older, I started to take on that role. I was successful at a young age, bought my first house at 21, and was working at IBM at 19, so he always had a room in my house and would often spend weekends with me. My sister didn't work much. My mom and I supported her and my nephew, but she was a good mom, so we helped a lot. However, when marijuana became legal in Colorado, she opened a dispensary and was never home. My nephew was around 11 at the time. He went from having his mom around all day to never seeing her, which was traumatizing for him, and he started to spend more and more time with me, sometimes even weeks. Over time, his resentment toward her grew, and they started fighting all the time. He begged her to let him live with me because the marijuana business literally consumed her life. He would even go to school smelling like marijuana. She refused to let him stay with me, even as the fighting got worse, so he started to run away. She blamed me, of course, saying I put these ideas into his head, which is absolutely untrue. Then he started to get into drugs and eventually got into serious trouble. Now, in his 20s, he is sitting in prison. Story 61. We were both in trouble, and that person let me take the blame when our parents caught us. We're fine now, but when I need a favor, I remind him of that moment, and he knows he really threw me under the bus. I care about him, but he's still wrong for letting me take the fall. Story 62. Sigh, how much more our father did for him than me. Our father never took much interest in anything I liked. It got to the point where he would skip over me when it was my turn to pick where we went to eat. But my brother, he went above and beyond. He wanted to go to a football game across the country, so he would take time off and personally drive him there. My dad got on both of our nerves, but I don't think he ever realized how much more our father did for him than for me. It hurts, but I also know it's not really his fault. Story 63. My sister mentioned that she didn't want my partner to come on the day I was going to tell her about my cancer diagnosis. The situation has worsened, and we haven't spoken at all since I brought him. I assume my mom might have informed her, but I don't communicate with her for other reasons. Story 64. I ate all the brownies I made. I put a note on the plate that said, "You can take one each." 2 hours later, they were all gone. Story 65. I was told that my parents regretted adopting me while they felt upset about being confronted for their dishonesty. I will never understand the issues surrounding my adoption, as I was very young when it occurred, and I do not even remember it. Story 66. I broke my collarbone. He denies it and insists that I just fell off the bed while we were jumping on it. I believe he pushed me, but there were no witnesses. Story 67. When I hosted a party at our house, a table in the living room fell apart. No one broke it. Someone just moved it, and it literally fell apart upon touch. My mom didn't believe me and kept joking that I broke the table and was denying it. My sister even chimed in and called me an alcoholic. Then a year later, she admitted that she actually broke the table a week before the party and had put the pieces back together so the next person to touch it would take the blame. Story 68. In the only year of college I attended, my mom sent me a care package. In it, she included my absolute favorite cookies, molasses cookies. She only makes them once a year, and she made a dozen just for me. Or at least they were supposed to be for me. Before they were put in the package, my brother opened the tin, took a bite out of every single cookie, packaged it back up, and my mom never noticed. I received a dozen bitten cookies while he had a field day with it. That was 15 years ago, and I still call him out on it. Story 69. My parents got me and my twin iPods for Christmas when we were around 13 or 14 years old. I was thrilled because it was the latest model and a complete surprise. I tried to be careful as I had a history of losing things. One day I lost my iPod. I searched in vain but couldn't find it. Guiltily, I told my parents how I felt awful about it since I had only had it for a few months. They didn't buy me another one, and I didn't expect them to. It was my own fault. Years later, I found the iPod in my sister's room after she moved out. She had given my iPod to her best friend and never mentioned it. It turns out that the things I lost, including money, makeup, and clothing, were taken by my sister, who then lied to my face. The iPod incident hurt the most, though. She also read my diary and made fun of me in front of her friends, which was awful. Story 70. We were probably 6 and 9 at the time. We would go to our grandmother's during the summer, and she would always give us a high five. My grandmother told us to finish our orange juice so we could do whatever, and my sister, the little troublemaker, said, "I finished mine, that's Viva's." No, you did not. But my grandmother, who was born in the 1920s, did not waste food. So I drank it. I'm older now, and every once in a while, I shout, "It's not my orange juice" at her when we're together. Little sisters can be so mischievous sometimes. Story 71. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so we often ate rice and similar dishes. One day, our mom had a little extra money and bought a frozen lasagna. While she was still at work, she asked my sister to cook it. Unfortunately, my sister dropped it while taking it out of the oven. I am still upset about that incident. Story 72. I tried on lip gloss and nail polish from my medicine cabinet, then wiped my mouth and wet nails on my white fluffy towels. She still insists to this day that it was a ghost. Story 73. My sister hated me from the day I was born. I was hanging off her bed, and she told me to stop. I didn't, and she scratched me so hard on my arm that it took an hour to stop the bleeding. I still have the scar 25 years later. She blamed me for the maintenance worker at an apartment we lived in with our mother finding out about her dog that she wasn't supposed to have and reporting it to management. She said if I had been home 30 minutes later, she most likely would have killed me. Before my brother passed, he got us all a beautiful set of hardcover Calvin and Hobbes books. She took it upon herself to claim them as hers alone and took them when she moved out. In middle school, she regularly locked me out of the house for so long after school that I would usually have to relieve myself in the backyard and drink from the hose. She would use that time to have intimate moments with her boyfriend and steal my money for marijuana. She found out I was snooping through her room. Typical little sister behavior. I didn't steal anything, I just thought she had cool stuff to look at. She slapped me so hard that my cheek was bruised for a week, and the school threatened to call Child Protective Services on my dad because they thought he did it. I was 9. She begged and pleaded with my dad to finally let her get a dog. She loved her for a week, then completely ignored her. She didn't feed her, didn't make sure she had water in the hot desert sun, didn't even go check on her. I fed her, I watered her, and I made sure she stayed cool. I would be out there for at least an hour every day playing with her. When she died, my sister kept her ashes. I guess I'll keep it there. Story 74. After we moved my dad to a memory care unit, my sibling ransacked the house and took most of the valuable belongings without discussing it with me. Story 75. In my early 20s, I lived with my brother in a 3-bedroom house with his fiancée and another friend. My brother was the point of contact with the landlord. He claimed that the rent was $2,000 when it was actually $1,500, so he wasn't paying anything. It still baffles me that anyone could do something like that. He lived rent-free for 5 years while making his brother, fiancé, and friend cover the costs. He earned more money than any of us. Still bothers me. Story 76. When I was an infant, my older brother, about 3 years old at the time, took me out of my crib and was holding me under my armpits at the top of the stairs. Apparently, he was scolding my mom for leaving me alone in the dark. She tried her best not to panic so he wouldn't drop me down the stairs. I always tell him that the attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed. Story 77. I found my ticket stub for Beavis and Butthead Do America in the laundry, and then I got in trouble for it. I'm grounded for 2 weeks. Story 78. I was in elementary school with a pretty pink bike and a helmet adorned with rainbows to match. My brother took my helmet without asking and removed all the stickers, leaving it bare except for the leftover adhesive that had dust and dirt stuck to it. It still makes me sad to think about it, especially since he just laughed until our dad found out. Story 79. They would physically assault me daily, sometimes more than once a day, and if I fought back, my parents punished me for hitting them. If I went to my parents and told them about the assault, I was punished for annoying my sibling and was told not to provoke them, as I already knew what they were like. Story 80. She waited until my dad was confused around age 76 and decided to throw out his collection of African masks. As an evangelical, she saw the devil in most images. We were able to save many. Story 81. My sister worked hard to undermine my parents' opinion of my wife. One of her children accidentally called my voicemail while she was speaking negatively about my wife and me to my parents, who also joined in. I emailed them the recording and an explanation of why we would not be visiting for Christmas or ever again. I have spoken to her twice in the last 20 years, both times because my dad was seriously ill in the hospital. I have 7 children, most of whom were adopted several years ago, and she has only met one of my kids. I have great relationships with all my other siblings. Story 82. I got a roll of bubble tape and hid it in the top of our shared closet, so she couldn't get to it. She went down for a nap, and I went in to grab it. Her cheeks were full like a chipmunk. The 5-year-old climbed the shelf and shoved the whole roll in her mouth, then tried to lay back down and pretend she didn't know where it went. Story 83. My brother was a troublemaker but still pampered and spoiled. I was a nerd who was often ignored but did well in school. I received a scholarship to college, so my parents got me a used car. My brother begged to borrow it, but of course he drove it recklessly and wrecked it in a ditch. That was 30 years ago. I am doing well. He may or may not be alive. Nobody in the family is trying to find out. Story 84. My older sister gave me an old t-shirt she didn't want anymore. She had outgrown it or just didn't like it. It became my favorite t-shirt and I wore it all the time. Then one day, after about a year of me owning it, she saw me wearing it, decided it looked good after all, and wanted it back. So she pretended she had never given it to me and that I had stolen it. She went off, saying how she had been looking for it this whole time, claiming it was her favorite shirt, and got our parents involved. I had to give it back. Because she was much older, my sister had an extensive music collection that I listened to all the time. She moved to another country when I was about 12 and took her music collection with her. Over my teenage years, I built up my own music collection, paid for with my own money. That included some of my favorites that my sister owned. While living in another country, my sister's house was broken into, and all of her belongings, including music, were stolen. Then she came back home for Christmas one year. She was looking through my music collection and saw that we had some of the same albums. Then she said, "Oh my, I thought these had been stolen, but I guess I left them here all along." I tried explaining that I had purchased them, but she didn't believe me. After she returned to the country she was living in, I noticed that half of my music collection was missing. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.